Up on the ranch, as well as the obvious gardening, there's a lot of infrastructure. Paths, bottle walls, lots of little buildings, especially the greenhouse, which looks like sort of a Viking barn or something. There's mending the tractor, and it all comes from this fundamental ability to make and mend, and that comes from my childhood, and it goes right back to as early as I can remember. I was 6 or 7, and my mum and dad bought me this little kid's toolkit for Christmas, and it had a hammer, screwdriver, and it had a saw. And one of my first memories of trying to make stuff is trying to saw this piece of wood. So it must have sort of been in the blood. My dad did an old-fashioned engineering apprenticeship. He was an engineer in the Air Force, and then he went on to teach handicrafts. And as such, he had access to a fully equipped workshop, and he could make anything. He would come home with these beautiful bits of furniture like chessboards, and he was into sailing, and he made all kinds of things for his boats. And inevitably it rubbed off on me and my brother. My mum and dad were so forward thinking that our house, we had this middle room about the size of this room, and it was our room. From kids, it was our room, right up to teenagers, and it was a den of iniquity. There were arrows stuck in the walls, airgun pellets embedded in the furniture, and it was anarchic. Of course, you didn't realise it at the time, and I was quite embarrassed by our house because it was a bit old and scruffy, but my mates loved it because they could come from the relative hen huts into this place of freedom and anarchy. So that sort of fed into punk and post-punk, and I went off, and inevitably I ended up doing an engineering apprenticeship in this little factory that had been a fish market, and the blokes were so down to earth and vernacular, and very, very clever and enterprising and very witty. And I remember one of the first things that I did was make a washer, which entails drilling a hole in a bar and just parting it off like that. And I took this washer to Graham, my supervisor, and I showed it to him, and he put it in the palm of his hand like that, and he looked at it, and then he looked at me like that, and then he looked at the washer, and he just went like that and threw it over his shoulder. And I was so crestfallen, but of course it was part of their sparkling wit. And I went off to college for a year, and I came top. And when I came back, of course, it was different. And they were proud of me, you know, I'd done well and given the firm a good name. But what that engineering foundation teaches you is that the fabric, the literal fabric of our Western society is 100% dependent on engineering. So everything you look at, the clothes we wear, the furniture, moulded plastic, it all comes from engineering. So of course, when punk came along, where you make your own stuff and you do your own thing, it was perfect. It was a perfect blend. So now everything we do in this room, the record label, we make our own record sleeves using a jig to fold them and glue them. And the guitar amplifiers are 100% made in this room. So things like being able to fold a chassis like that in the kitchen using a little folding machine, and to drill and punch and all stuff like that. So it all comes from engineering. But most of all, it's so applicable to the ranch. As you walk around the ranch, everything you look at, the bottle walls, the half-finished sheds, the tractor, it's all engineering. So that was the first apprenticeship, and it was the most useful because it teaches you the fabric. And of course I wrote about it in the book, it's the second chapter. And that's it really. And the song, Engineering Days. So that's it. Engineering Days.
Hey, knob tosser, hey, twat, what the fuck do you call that? You're supposed to be brainy, you could have fooled me. The only thing you're good for is making the tea. I really love those engineering days. I really love those tool making days. So started my apprenticeship. The cleaning machines are going for the chips.